And um, we can introduce this topic with the word projection, which is the word that you just used.
Projection or rejection?
I heard projection, but
Oh, I said rejection.
all right. So um, it's actually kind of related.
Okay.
So if I'll go on to it. The point that I was looking at when you were talking was the fact that this what I'm about to say happens in every possible case. It's almost like a law, but it's not really a law, all right? And the statement is that the observer always bastardizes his own data.
Hmm.
Do you know what I mean by that?
I have some inklings.
All right. One of the inkling then would be Heisenberg uncertainty principle down at the subparticle level.
Hmm.
Is it a
Hmm.
wave or is it a particle? Depends upon how you're measuring it
Hmm.
and where it is and the speed and velocity. If you can figure out one, you can't figure out the other because you can't make both of those kinds of observations at the same time. So is light a wave? Is light a particle?
Hmm.
But a better example is bird watching. Bird watching. I thought we were talking about particle physics. The answer is, in this regard, that when someone is out there, let us call it one of these kind of bird watchers that we really have seen. I mean, England is full of them. They've got binoculars, they've got a camera, they've got all kinds of crazy equipment, and they're out there really dedicated. Now, let me ask you this question. Do you think that he's out there with the birds all by himself, or do you think the birds know all about him too?
Sure they do.
All right, well, if that's the case, then what he's observing is not birds, he's observing birds observing him. And they've got their eye on him too,
Uh-huh.
because that camera may be one of those that gets loaded. All right,
Yeah.
so now let's look at it in the sense of surveys or political polls. They're always skewed depending upon what way the question is. In fact, doing a really good course in mathematics, in statistics, and the mathematicians are always laughing at the statisticians because the results of the survey is going to always depend more upon the way that you ask the question than anything else.
Hmm.
And worse than that, but the poll is being taken in a way that makes polls easy to do.
Hmm.
But by taking polls that are easy to do, that means that we actually are polling people that are easy to poll rather than getting an actual survey.
Mm. Hmm.
All right, so now you're going down this line of recognizing, wait a minute, in particle physics, in bird watching, in political polling and statistics. Always the observer bastardizes his own data. So now my question is, what about meditators? Do
Fuck.
they do they not also bastardize their own data in the sense that things are going to be the way that they are if we're not watching, but when we start watching, automatically things are changed just by definition. But now you're watching what's going on. And that one of the things that's quite amazing that's going on for, gosh, it happens to everybody at one point or another, and you have this already in at least one regard, and that is that when you're not watching, you don't know. When you're watching, you begin to see things, and the things that you see, you begin not to like. So now we don't want to look at it anymore because it's painful to look at.
Hmm.
Okay, so that's one of the things that's happening. But the fact is, Danny, is that you're getting really sharp. You're beginning to really pay close attention, and you're beginning to see all kinds of crap.
Yeah, and also resist the temptation to cover it over with distraction.
Exactly, which is basically then the delusion that the bird watcher is thinking that he's watching birds without understanding. No, he's watching birds watch him. So if that's what's happening at that level, then not only are you beginning to see the defilements, but the defiled mind is beginning to see that they're being watched. And so they begin to sneak around. There's ways that we begin to trick ourselves. And when we
Sounds like
begin
fun.
and well, when we see that, then we can say again, I caught you doing that one too. And so it's a lot about this observation. You keep looking, you keep seeing, but you know that by the looking, things begin to change.
Mm-hmm.
A really, really clear example of that is I'll give you an example with Kitty. Kitty, several years ago, she throws a tantrum. When she throws a tantrum, Tam throws a tantrum. Moms do that.
Mm-hmm.
But old wake up daddy comes and says, wait a minute, daddy does not have to throw his tantrum either about Kitty throwing a tantrum or about mom throwing her tantrum with Kitty. Because in fact, when mom throws a tantrum, um, then there's actually the threat of violence. So now Kitty is in a position of, I want something bad enough, I'm going to lose it over. And now I'm being threatened to my very life with this hand in the air. And so Kitty is not going in the right direction at all. She's going from one bad feeling to another bad feeling deeper into it. If Daddy gets unhappy and angry, he's only going to add to that. So we're going to have to take another way, and that is that when we're mindful of the feelings that we have of, oh, I don't like the fact that Kitty is having a tantrum, and I really don't like that Tam is having a tantrum because Kitty's having a tantrum. Wait a minute, it's inappropriate for me to go and have my tantrum too.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got to find a new way of doing it. That's the wake up call. Once we recognize that everybody's having a tantrum, and we can see that, and we can see the invitation for us having the tantrum too, that's the wake up call. That's saying, wait a minute, I can see this. And because we wake up to it, or that's, yeah, right. As soon as that thought comes, automatically, right view is, hey, wait a minute, being non tantrum is a little better than being tantrum.
Mm-hmm.
And so we decide not to have it, even though the feelings are there to have that tantrum. Wakefulness has now stopped it.
Mm-hmm.
That's why sati is so important.
Yeah.
I must have reminded you of something.
No.
Just insight, huh? You just see it. Yeah. I see that shit. Yeah, exactly. This is why Bhikkhu Buddhadasa is so big on mindfulness at the point of contact. When
Mm-hmm.
Kitty contacts me, that's my time for mindfulness, not 3 or 5 seconds after I've started to have my tantrum. But
Yeah.
right when I see her having the tantrum, that's the point that I have to wake up. Well, guess what? That's the wake up call. That mindfulness is the wake up. And
Mm-hmm.
so we can say in that regard, aha, I don't have to follow those old feelings. Aha, I can choose a new way. And so this is an example of where actually the Dhamma is just this one little teaching. Never mind, start again. That's the whole teaching.
I'm glad I called.
Me too. This has been delightful.
Mm.
Yeah, it's been a good 10 minutes.
Mm.
So, and that's all from that position of that the observer always bastardizes his own data.
Mm-hmm.
And so we like that. I mean, this is what we want to do because, in fact, you can see that this natural thing, in this case, is to your benefit.
Because it gives me opportunity to practice.
No, because by seeing it, it automatically starts to change.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I see. Okay.
Imagine that a mouse is on the floor and he's looking up at you, and while he's looking up at you, he sees you've got a huge hammer that's coming right after him. He sees that hammer, he's going to respond to it. He's going to get out of the way. All right. So all of this has to do then the observation, being able to see something, has its own power.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that the observation itself changes the data.
Mm-hmm.
It does that at the physical level, it does it at the bird watching level, and it certainly does it at the mindfulness level. By seeing this stuff, that's all it takes. Because the desire to change it is already there. So
Mm.
at this level, effort is already in the position of being energetic now.
Yeah.
In the beginning, it was effort. When I saw it, I didn't like it. I don't like the mind wandering away. But now you're at the stage of, wait a minute, I see that stuff, and that's all it takes.
Right. Even when gladdening the mind has felt really like pushing against this stuff, it's felt very effortful at times. I've found that if I take the surrender route instead, go, okay.
That's right. Uh, I hadn't thought about it like that, but there's many different ways of expressing that. I like Mary Poppins. A spoonful of sugar will help the medicine go down. Hmm. Which is another way of surrendering to it. Okay, I got to take the medicine. Let's make it easy.
Mm, mm,
So this helps a lot when we begin to recognize, oh, mindfulness, sati. That's the important thing. Keep going, keep looking, keep looking.
mhm. I don't think I could stop if I tried at this point.
I'm sorry, what?
I don't think I could stop looking if I tried.
Ah, it's a habit.
Yeah.
It's a habit to be developed, a skill to be developed.
I'm
That's
too
interesting
curious.
that habits and skills are basically the same thing,
Mm.
except that when it's a skill that's positive, we call it a skill, and when it's a negative skill, we call it a bad habit. But both of them had to go through a training process.
Mm, mm,
And so now we're developing wholesome habits, the wholesome habit of look at what's going on, keep looking, keep seeing.
mm.
And by the way, we've got a lot of new students coming on thanks to an email or two that you wrote to Reddit.
Yes.
At least 5 new students.
Great. Great. I'm glad.
Yes, so we've got a whole new crop, a whole new generation starting up.
Great. Good.
So and many of them. In fact, I I think we've gone through a bit of this to where uh, Pablo, um, who is from Paris, is
Mm-hmm.
here now.
Yeah.
But he just did the retreat at Wat Suan Mok at the beginning of the month, and he says there he met 2 guys
Mm.
who already know about you and me, and they wound up at Wat Suan Mok all on their own. but that I'll see them later in the month. But
Great.
so Pablo was saying that, uh, and uh, in fact, there's a lot of the new students themselves who are seeing that. So I really like the idea that we're. Uh, hmm. Noah got things started a couple of years ago. It was
Hmm.
his emails that you saw,
Yes. Yes.
and so now this whole idea of paying it forward
Mm.
rather
Mm.
than payback is to pay it forward. So I'm thinking that I should actually talk to some of the other old students
Hmm.
and have them put on testimonials. But if I do that, then we'll have too many students. So let's let's be slow and easy, a
Yeah.
bit at a time.
Yeah. Maybe we space them out. So I think what was so effective about what I did recently was that I did it in the form of a Q&A. This is what this is a typical thing on Reddit.
Uh-huh.
It's called an Ask Me Anything. And so I put on there that I'd been speaking with you for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
This is how I'm practicing. This is what's great about it. Ask me questions so people get curious.
Excellent.
And yeah. And people were very forthcoming with their thanks. They found the thread very useful, and that encouraged them to give you a call.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah.
That's great.
Mm.
Things are moving right along.
Yeah.
Uh, in fact, the phone call is from Brenda. She has just now finished leading the retreat at Wat Khao Tam.
Okay.
At the beginning of the retreat, it was going to be Pramarut. And then all of a sudden, Anthony comes in, and
Hmm.
that was a big deal that Anthony is finally back at Wat Khao Tam. But somehow or another, that didn't work out. And so Brenda wound up teaching the retreat. So now I got to go find out what actually happened.
Hmm. Hmm.
But Tun and Suko did the English language retreat at Deepa Bhawan uh, during that same time, and so he just came back from doing that and spent a few days here. But Tun has now gone back over to Wat Suan Mok.
Okay.
So things have been really busy
Mm.
around here with a lot of students. One, two, three, four, five.
Great.
And so now I'm going to go pick her up at the Wat Khao Tam and bring her over here for a nice long chat.
Wonderful. Mm.
And so meanwhile, today we talked to Willie and we talked to Natalie,
Hmm.
and in the past several days there's been a lot of new students,
Mm.
and I haven't heard from either Robert or Ferdinand. Haven't heard for a couple of weeks. It's like after a while, then the students only need to call about once every 2 weeks, maybe once a month, and so it all is working out. This
Mm.
whole natural method seems to be working really well.
Sure does. Sure does.
Do you have any particular questions?
What do we do when you die?
Enjoy.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, okay.
Just as
Um,
usual.
One of the things that we were talking, I think it was with Natalie, we are talking about the fact that in many cases, people will know that they're about to die.
Mm.
That some people will become quite lucid
Mm.
in the sense of letting all of their old crap go. So finally, I
Mm.
can be free.
Hmm.
To where other people a day or two before they die, they get really tight because they're really afraid. It's like the last gasp.
Hmm.
And so we treat that death the way that everything. I think Buddhists are actually quite big on having a really last good moment. I think the Catholics are pretty big on that about having last rites and all of that so that when someone passes, they can pass away in comfort and ease.
Mm. Mm.
as opposed to grabbing the guy that's over you by the collar and says, "I'll see you in hell," which happens way too often in movies. And I think,
I suppose what I mean is no one else seems to be teaching like you do. And we're going to have all of these videos, which is great. But I remember before I came to Thailand, I was thinking to myself, well, it's okay because when Dhammarato croaks it, I can just go to Thailand and get the teaching there. And yet my experience was so different to what we do here.
Hey, if you want someplace to croak, go talk to Dhammarato. He'll help you out. He and I are really, really closely aligned mentally.
Okay.
And I imagine that that would be true with Thai monks if our language connection was good enough.
Right.
But you also know that the issue of dealing with death is literally all over the teachings of the Buddha.
Yeah.
There's actually more than one sutta devoted to it. Sutta number 4 in the Majjhima Nikaya is about dealing with the fear of death. The whole idea about the monks going to the charnel ground and looking at corpses, or that Goenka has a set of autopsy videos so that we can begin to get used to it, because it's going to happen to everybody. You see, the way that the mentality in our culture is that, because nobody wants to do about it, let's sweep it under the carpet. Let's have it done in the basement of the hospital. Let's let a select group of people called morticians do all the dirty work, and nobody else has to deal with it. So when Granny gets sick, we're going to send her to the hospital, and now it's not our business anymore. The only thing we have to do is feel bad after she's dead, called grief. The thing of it is, if Granny had a really good send-off and everybody was really happy to watch Granny croak, then they wouldn't need a funeral. They would just need to dispose of a body. That would be all. She can have her funeral while she's still laying in bed there.
Yeah.
Having a Chardonnay. But our culture is really, really weird about death. We try to hide it because we're afraid of it. But when the society or a group or people are much more healthy, or individuals in the Dhamma, we recognize, death is something that's going to happen. I might as well get ready for it.
And have a party.
Yeah, and then we can have a party now, and we can have a party then. And so there's many little things that we can do that'll help prepare us for death. One of them, by the way, is watching yourself go to sleep, because watching yourself go to sleep and being mindful of what the mind rotting away into sleep is a very good training for mindfulness of watching the mind rot away into death. And so paying attention to it at night as we're going to sleep, what's it like to actually fall asleep? And then watching autopsy videos. Actually being around people who die. One of the things that's happened just from the happenstance, mostly that happened in North Carolina, because when I was a monk in Thailand, I was such a junior monk, and only senior monks go to funerals, and they've got a lot of monks in Thailand to go to funerals. But in the United States, we didn't have enough monks to go around for all of the funerals.
Right.
And so I wound up going to a lot of funerals, oftentimes twice a week.
Okay.
And so do I know funerals? I have seen a whole lot of dead Asian bodies. And that's useful. It's useful because it makes it part of life. To
Mm.
where in your ordinary society there in Bristol, how many people do you think out on the street have actually watched or been around dead bodies?
Very few.
Very few. We don't know anything about it. And because we have no knowledge, there is that fear.
Mm.
And so, one of the things that we could do to help another one would be to go to the cemetery for your meditation.
Mhm. Mhm.
And if you can afford a coffin, go get one and meditate in that. That's a little bit beyond, a cardboard box will do. Yeah, but contemplation of death, because we're going to die. And
Mm.
when you recognize, hey, no big deal. Who was it? I think that it was Richard Dawkins, but I'm not sure of who made this statement. He says, "Death. I'm not afraid of death. For 100 or for actually literally 13.7 billion years, I've been dead, and then for a
Yeah.
little while I was alive. I can
Yeah.
be dead for a long time, and I won't miss a thing."
Mhm. Mhm.
And so, looking at it like that, the world comes and the world goes, and it was doing just fine without me, and it'll do just fine without me again.
Mm. Mm.
And so that's a bit of an ego breaker, but it also helps us get prepared for death. It's okay to die. It really
Mhm.
is. But
Mhm.
for most
Mhm.
people, say, "Oh no, oh no, oh no, not yet, not yet, not yet." But
Yeah, and
unfortunately, go
yeah,
ahead.
I feel that to some degree. You know, when I consider my own death, there's not a whole lot of fear around. Now, I've not had any close calls as yet, so I suspect that at that time I'll really find out
Yeah,
whether
close
the
calls are actually quite good teachers.
yeah, I'll bet they are. Yeah, well, I had one actually that I can remember, but I wasn't injured or anything. It was just a very, very near miss on the road. Um, but my concern is more um, about how uh, is about you, is about how effectively you are sharing the Dharma, and how you know, I looked around at lots of other teachers beforehand and came to Thailand and didn't find anything even similar to the way that you're teaching the Dharma. And hell, you might be around for ages yet,
Another
but it's
30
just a
years. I'm not sure
yeah.
I'll be teaching for 30 years, but yeah, the genes are there for 100.
Okay, okay,
And I've got
okay.
obligations. I got family obligations. I'm not ready to croak yet. But as
Uh-huh.
soon as my turn, as soon as my time comes, there I go. Bye bye, cool world. And by the time I go, you will be the old man sitting in the chair, jawboning about the Dhamma, and you will not be worried about who else knows.
Mm,
Because you're going to get everything you need from your own mind. It's not from me.
mm, mm,
All I can do is point out things that you need to look at.
mhm,
And as we know, this new observer is going to bastardize all that old data.
mm,
Um, I think that this is one of the reasons also of why generally folks don't know very much about anatomy, is because to learn the human body actually is to take us towards the taking apart and the
right.
disassembling of the body.
Yeah.
And so watching autopsy tapes is actually quite fearful for some
Mhm.
people.
Mhm.
That's
I
why
have
they're good to watch.
opportunities. Yeah, I have opportunities to go to dissections every now and then with the Alexander Technique guys.
Great. I would
Yeah,
imagine there should be enough autopsy videos on the internet by now. Every university, every medical college will probably have an autopsy video. I'd be surprised if they
sure.
weren't even on YouTube.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They might be flagged up.
Well, it depends upon what you're cutting into.
Yeah, yeah.
You can try the chest open, but watch that tit. I mean, don't watch it. I mean, don't watch that. So, yes, there's a lot of things. Now, one of the things that the Buddha did, which is basically one of the reasons that I was talking about going to a cemetery for meditation, is because the Buddha actually um, sought out holy, special, sacred, haunted places just so that he could test himself.
There's such a thing as haunted places.
Well, there are haunted places because they feel haunted,
Okay.
as opposed because they actually are haunted.
Okay.
Dungeons and castles feel haunted whether there's anything there to haunt or not.
Sure. Sure. So the Buddha would go and sit in these places.
That was, in fact, Bodh Gaya. Bodh Gaya was known to be one of those haunted places. That's why he went there.
Right. Interesting. Like training with weights on.
Exactly. Exactly so.
Yeah.
Exactly so. So if you want to train with weights, go do it in a cemetery at night.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go spend the night in the cemetery. Sit up all night.
Yeah.
That's the heavy duty work.
Yeah.
That's up there with having teeth pulled by an Asian doctor without without anesthetic,
Yeah.
which monks do.
Yeah. As an opportunity.
Yeah, it's an opportunity for practice. The question, and Danny and I were just talking about that. In fact, about uh, the monks in Asia can get free dental care, but they know that the expensive part of any dental procedure, like pulling teeth, is going to be any medications or drugs, and so the monks are willing to do without that, so that the doctor doesn't really have much any expense. All he's doing is taking his pliers and grabbing hold and pulling it out. And the monk's job is to make sure that his hands are balanced and relaxed, and just empty. That we don't do it like that while the tooth is being pulled. And by putting your energy or your thought into the relaxing of the hands, that takes the mind off of the tooth being pulled.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, it's the same thing about spending a night in the cemetery. Don't think about spending the night in the cemetery. While you're in the cemetery, think about enjoying the night. Because there's nothing special about this place that I'm not making special because of my own fear of death.
Yeah.
That's what we mean by haunted places. There are certain things that have a certain feeling that is just really yucky. And those are good places to go meditate. So that you can walk out of there saying, I didn't feel any yucky at all. Ha ha. All right, well, it's getting time that I got to go get Brenda, so I'm going to hang up now.
Okay, Dhammarato.
Alrighty.
Great talking with you.
Glad to see you again.
Thanks again.
See you, Danny.
Bye-bye.